Canada, a land of stunning lakes, soaring mountains, and enough wilderness to make your spirit sing. But did you know that 80% of this majestic country is uninhabited? Why do almost 39 million people choose to live in only a small area of this huge country, and what drives this unique population distribution? Stay tuned to discover that it extends beyond the challenges of harsh weather climates alone. Canada is the second largest country in the world. It's so big that it's divided into 13 provinces and territories. It's a massive chunk of land stretching all the way from the Atlantic Ocean in the east to the Pacific Ocean in the west and up to the Arctic Ocean in the north. Seriously, it's huge. We're talking about 3.8 million square miles of land. To put that into perspective, the entire continent of Europe is just slightly bigger. But as mentioned earlier, it's almost empty. Around 39 million people reside in a very small area. That's right, enough empty space to house several European countries, all left to the whispering pines and roaming caribou. What's the answer to this? And why are big cities like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Ottawa all located in the south of the country? Not one or two, but many factors, including geography, climate, and a dash of history, contribute to this. Let's start with the ground beneath our feet. First up, we've got the Rocky Mountains in the west. These are like giant guardians, standing tall and proud, with peaks reaching way up into the sky. They're a playground for hikers, skiers, and adventure seekers alike. Also, there are Great Lakes in the south, which are like gigantic freshwater oceans. Seriously, they're so big that you can't even see the other side. These lakes are not only great for boating and fishing, but also provide water for millions of people. Now let's head north, way up to the Arctic. The Arctic is covered in ice and snow for most of the year, and the sun barely sets in the summer. It's home to polar bears, walruses, and some of the most challenging environmental conditions. But there is an even darker side to the story. Much of Canada rests on the Canadian Shield, a colossal hump of ancient rock that's been around since forever, geologically speaking. This shield's stubborn refusal to budge means it's not exactly prime real estate for agriculture. The soil is thin and rocky, more suited for pine trees than rolling wheat fields. Unlike the fertile plains that beckoned settlers south of the border, Canada's northern expanse throws down a challenge. Survive on this if you dare. This geography also influences Canada's agriculture, which is another factor that causes fewer people to live in most parts of Canada. So according to the late William Lewis Morton, who was a pretty big deal in Canadian history, the layout of Canada's land has a lot to do with farming. You see, the best land for farming is down south where it's warmer. Makes sense, right? That's why you'll find most of the good farming spots below the red line on the map. Morton discusses how all this great farmland led to what he calls intensive commercial agriculture. Basically, this means there were a lot of farms and businesses popping up all over the place. And where there are people working and living, you get villages, towns, and cities growing up too. When Canada started getting into industry and making stuff, it just made sense to do it where all the people were already hanging out. So that's why you see a lot of action and growth in those southern areas. However, Canada's connection with the United States goes beyond just being neighbors. Believe it or not, about 9 out of 10 Canadians live within 100 miles of the US border. It's like they just can't resist being close to their American pals. Then there's the weather. We all know Canada gets a little chilly up north. Like seriously, it's cold. We're talking months of bone-numbing winters where the wind bites like a hangry wolverine. Throughout the winter, temperatures often dip below freezing, with averages hovering between 23 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And up in the northern provinces, it can even drop below -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Building a life in such conditions takes some serious grit. Forget popping down to the corner store for milk. Surviving here means being resourceful and self-sufficient. Not exactly the recipe for bustling cityscapes. But here's the thing. Cold weather alone isn't enough to scare people off. Just look at Russia, which is also cold but has way more inhabitants than Canada. As mentioned earlier, because a big part of Canada is covered by the Canadian Shield, the rugged terrain isn't ideal for farming, making it challenging for communities to thrive. That's why most Canadians prefer to live near the southern border, where the soil is fertile and farming is possible. But that isn't the only villain in this story. History throws its 2 cents in as well. European settlers weren't exactly keen on battling blizzards for a patch of rocky soil. They set their sights on the south, where the land was more forgiving and the winters, relatively, milder. This head start created a snowball effect. As populations boomed in the south, infrastructure followed. Roads, railways, and all the trimmings of a modern society. The north, meanwhile, remained a beautiful but unforgiving frontier. Now don't get us wrong. It isn't to say Canada's empty expanse is some kind of forgotten wasteland. Indigenous communities have thrived here for millennia, living in harmony with the land. Small, hardy towns dot the landscape, testaments to the human spirit's ability to adapt. But large-scale settlement? Not so much. On the other hand, we all know that Canada is also home to some pretty spectacular lakes, including the Great Lakes. These massive bodies of water not only provide stunning scenery, but also help moderate the climate, making the surrounding areas more habitable. And let's remember the St. Lawrence River. This historic waterway has been a major highway for ships exploring North America for centuries. It's like the original GPS, guiding explorers inland and leading to the development of major cities like Montreal and Toronto. But wait, there's more. Canada isn't just empty land and cold weather. It's also rich in natural resources. From vast forests to mineral-rich lands, Canada is like a treasure trove waiting to be discovered. In fact, Canada is one of the world's leading producers of minerals like nickel, gold, and uranium. And let's not forget about the maple syrup, the sweet nectar of the Great White North. But the problem is that extracting them is a logistical nightmare. Imagine hauling giant mining equipment across hundreds of miles of tundra, battling sub-zero temperatures and unforgiving landscapes. It's expensive, dangerous, and frankly not for the faint of heart. While some resource extraction does occur, it doesn't exactly scream mass migration. Moreover, the cost of living is quite high. Building a city from scratch is no picnic. Every pipe, every power line, every brick has to be shipped in, often at great expense. In the south, with its established infrastructure, adding another town was a breeze. But venture north, and suddenly, the cost of that new school or hospital skyrockets. This economic reality plays a significant role in keeping population density low in remote areas. So Canada may be big, cold, and sparsely populated, but it's also incredibly diverse and full of hidden gems. Despite its chilly reputation, Canada continues to captivate the hearts of adventurers, nature lovers, and maple syrup enthusiasts alike. And who knows? Maybe one day, Canada's population will catch up to its immense size. If you found this video interesting, do check out our video on why nobody lives in the vast majority of British Columbia.